Welcome back to our study on the book of Romans. This is session number 50, and we're studying sonship orientation. I just lowered the mic a little bit. I think it's still on. Yeah. Okay. I had it up, and Billy gave me the signal too loud. Okay. She hears everything now. I have to really be careful what I say. We left off looking at the armor of light. Now, folks, understand, we're not doing a study on the armor of light right now. I'm just trying to show you it keeps creeping up on me. I don't know what the deal is there. What I'm trying to show you is that the commitments that you're being oriented to that are later going to be established in you are given to you in a particular order. And you understand that's why if we would have come out of, say, Romans 5 or 6 and jumped over to Romans 12, all of the effectual working of that word to produce that level of commitment in you would have assured that we would have all washed out. And so, I don't know what the thing is here. It's alive. I don't know. It keeps crawling up. All right. So here's what I want to do. To start this one, I think we've talked enough about that. You kind of get that idea. If that doesn't excite you at all, then you just have to wait till we come back and study it. But this is really going to be something. I just want you to understand that one of the things that you are going to be able to purchase through this wisdom, in a sense, is a name. Now, there are other things that are actually called merchandise. This is not one of them. I just want you to know that this one is actually going to start pretty early on in your sonship education. And that is only going to come to you as you progress through the wisdom. See, so that happens to you pretty quick right off the bat. All right, so let's return now and look at Proverbs 2:4. So here it is again. If thou seekest her as silver and searchest for her as for hid treasures. Now, there are... Let's see if I can say it like this. I guess I ate my marker at the break. I'll try the purple. When Proverbs 2:4 talks about and I'm encapsulating everything, calling it the top priority, that is going to happen in two particular parts. So we're going to put these up here. The first one, by the way, if you look at that verse, can you notice the two... I don't know what's going on with this. Oh, thank you. Okay. Can you look at that verse and say to yourself, I can see two parts in that? Okay. Do you know how most people would see that? They would see that as synonyms. They'd look at that and say, it's just repeating the thing. You seek her as silver, search for her as for hid treasure. That's not meant to be a synonym. He's not giving you two different ways of looking at it in case the first one didn't work. He is actually talking about two different aspects of this measure. The seekest is going to describe the first one, and if you think about it, that's the more general term. When you look these terms up, to seek is the more general term. Search is the more intensive form. So we're really going to be talking about two different aspects here. I'm just kind of pointing that out to show you that there really is a difference in these two terms, and he's not just talking about the same kind of thing, just re-emphasizing it over and over again. And in your notes, and I guess I'll just take just a second and talk about it, I'm pointing out the precision of the word choices here. Because when you go to a different translation or you go to a commentary, they actually don't see two component parts here. They just see it all as one, and they don't even know what you're seeking for. I mean, they do say wisdom, but they don't understand it within the framework of sonship. But I just want you to see that the word choices here are very precise in your Bible, and they're meant to be that way. And when I say that we're going to look at this third commitment here, and I'm fixing to show you the exhortations that go with it, that will make this the top priority instead of a top priority, is to show you that whatever time and effort it takes to get this, at the end, it will have been worth it. Have you ever been involved in a project that got way more involved than you thought it was, and you said to yourself, is it worth it? Is this worth it? There's sometimes when you look at it and you go, yeah, it is. It is. I'm going to carry this through because it's worth it. The other times you say, look, this is not worth it. Let's just cut our losses. And, but you have to make that decision. In this, your Father's going to show you something that will show you that whatever kind of time and effort it takes here, it is going to be worth it to you to do that. And it really will be the top priority to you. Now, we talked about this a little bit in the first session at the very beginning, and that is silver as it pertains to money. Money is, that's why we do the things that we do, and even if you just have a barter system, someone can say, well, it's not money, but even barter, the things you're trading now become money. It's the same kind of thing. And I want you to understand that, well, let me just take you to this exhortation. Proverbs 3. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. For the merchandise of it, now there's that word, it has merchandise attached to it. For the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold. She, talking about wisdom, is more precious than rubies, and all the things thou canst desire are not to be compared unto her. Now, there's an analogy that's being made here in a comparison. There's not only the merchandise that is available because of wisdom, but there is also, he talks about the merchandise of silver. Somebody want to give me an example of merchandise of silver? We're talking about silver being money. All right, when you go to the grocery store, isn't that merchandise? And that's an important one, isn't it? When you pay your heating bill, that's an important one. Power for your home, that's an important one. Clothing, gas in the car, your house payment. That's all merchandise. Now, notice what he says. All right, look. I was going to sneak up on you with it. But instead, I'll tell you what it is so that you'll see it. You are about to discover the different kind of thinking that you have to have when you are considering issues of wealth. Your Father thinks about wealth in one particular way, and He wants you to begin thinking about it in that way. So here, even in your orientation, you're starting to get your thinking moving in this direction. Because when we look at wealth, we always look at it the way the world looks at it. How much is in the bank account? How big is the home? How expensive is the car? All those kinds of issues. Look, money is not the problem. The love of money is the problem. But what I'm going to tell you is, if you get to thinking that wealth is measured by bank accounts and incomes, you're looking at it only in the way the world looks and not the way your Heavenly Father looks. And I want to show you why He looks at it this way. Because people will say, look, even when I was talking to Billy this morning on the way in. When I was a young preacher boy, I used to say, look, you know what? Knowing God is more important than all the money in the world. And that is true. But your Father really has something very specific in mind. The things that you are going to be able to purchase with this wisdom mean more to Him than the things you can purchase with silver and gold. How can that be? You say, well, because they're spiritual. That's not what's going on with this. They are. When it says it's more precious than rubies. You say, well, he's making a comparison between the spiritual and the physical. Well, he is. But I want to show you what your Father thinks real wealth is. So let me say it to you, and then we'll go through the verse. Let's suppose that you win the lottery, and you win $500 million. And you've got this $500 million, and now you buy properties and merchandise. You've got everything you could ever want. When you die, how much of it are you taking with you? You know that. And that doesn't surprise anybody here. In fact, people always say, well, you can't take it with you. What your Father expects you to buy with the wisdom, you're going to take every bit of that with you, because that's eternal. And what He expects you to buy is as necessary for you to properly function up there as the things are necessary for you to live down here that you purchase with silver and gold. How necessary? You say, well, I buy food and clothing and shelter and all. You know what? Those are necessary. I mean, I get that. But He says, however, you think those are necessary? You're just down here for a little while. When you get up there, the things, by the way, the things for up there can't be bought with gold and silver. The things that you're going to need up there forever, not just for a while, but forever, are going to be more needful to you than food, clothing, and shelter down here. You say, well, we have to have food, clothing, and shelter, or we can't live. Even more, if you don't have the things that wisdom can purchase, you're not going to function up there. So your Father says, I'm going to show you how I measure wealth. Wealth, in His eyes, are things that are eternal. So all that bank account and that yacht and all that business, I mean, if anybody here owns a yacht, I'm not shooting at you. I'm just kind of bitter that you haven't invited me out on it. But other than that, look, nothing wrong with things, but that's not how God measures wealth. So you know what? There are people who will reject sonship because their life is situated this way. I have lots of money. I have everything I could ever want for and more. I'm pretty much set up. What else could I want? Do you realize when in Revelation, when the letter is written to one of those churches out there in the day of wrath, remember what he says? You think you're rich, but you're poor, destitute, and naked. They had no idea what that meant. Don't tell us we're poor, destitute, and naked. We got it all. Look around. Anybody compare to this? And your Father says, godly thinking looks at wealth differently than the world. The world looks at you and says, you're wealthy. God says, I look at you and I see poor, destitute, and naked. Because the only things that matter to Him are the things that can only be purchased through this education. And if you know that, you now know something about why this is more than just a top priority. It is going to become the top priority. Because however badly you need those other things, your Father's going to tell you, you need this worse. And you've got to have it. I think He's wise. I mean, it doesn't need my okay to do this, but I think He's wise to orient us to this way back here so that we understand what this is going to be doing in us. Because once these commitments are in place and we get to this place, we finish that first part in wisdom and put on that armor of light, which, by the way, you can't put on until you've finished the education in all the aspects of godly wisdom. So we can't put that armor on today, even if we wanted to. So I want to say that because someone may be afraid, what if I accidentally put on the armor of light and become the target of the adversary before I'm ready? You can't accidentally put that on. But God is wise to do this. Now let's break this verse down just for a moment. By the way, you understand God is not given to stretching the truth for the sake of illustration. He's telling you how it really is. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom, there's the wisdom, and the man that getteth understanding. For the merchandise, and again, as soon as we finish this, we're going to go back to enumerating things that we're going to be able to purchase. What is that merchandise? What's in the list of things that we can buy to ourselves? So the merchandise of it is better than the merchandise of silver, and the gain thereof than fine gold. That's hard for that's hard for a lot of folks to wrap their head around. But your Father is telling you exactly how this goes. She is more precious than rubies. So even if you want to get away from the money part, you know what? People say, well, you know what? We invest in things that have value because they have a tendency to increase in value and become more. And that's a wealth thing. You know, I mean, they have wealth built up that way. Well, he's using rubies here, but in case someone says, well, it's not rubies, it's not a big deal. What about diamonds? You know, or what about tanzanite? Or what about, you know, you can do that. Look how he ends this. More precious than rubies, and all the things thou canst desire. Now, that's pretty encompassing, isn't it? He says, all the things you can desire are not to be compared with it. All right, I'm going to finish this illustration up. Here's a guy that has a lot of money, a lot of position, a lot of power. Everything's going his way. He owns everything he could ever think of and stuff he doesn't even use or need. He's just, you know, he's just got it. And he looks like, and you know what? You know what he's saying? I know what he's saying. God's blessed me. That's what he's saying. He's saying, God gave me this. I'm going to tell you what your Father is interested in giving you in this dispensation of grace. And it's not on the list of what can be purchased with gold and silver. Now, it's a hard one to swallow. I'm going to tell you now, don't start thinking like you're in Israel's program all of a sudden. You are in the dispensation of grace where your Father says there is something that is more valuable than anything you can desire on this earth, and that's the thing I'm interested in giving you. Look, do you remember, let's just go back in Israel's program. Do you remember when he sent those disciples out? He told them, carry how many sets of clothes? One. How many pairs of shoes? One. How much money? None. Don't carry any money, no scrip with you. Don't carry any of that with you. Don't worry about what you'll eat or what you'll wear. You know what he said? It'll all be provided for you. You get in the dispensation of grace, and you know what Paul says? You know, if you don't work, you don't eat. Wait, what happened to the miraculous provision? That's an Israel program thing. When you get into the dispensation of grace, you're going to find out what your Father has one thing He's looking at. And He is not nearly as concerned with me driving a Rolls Royce as He is with me getting the sonship education. He's not nearly as interested in me acquiring wealth in this world. If I do, because you know it's coming. In Imperial, if they gave me all the money in Imperial, He's not looking at that. You know what He's looking at? There's a wealth He does want me to have, and that wealth is purchased through the wisdom that's part and parcel of this education. And that's what He's after. And I'm supposed to be using that to purchase some things. And I'm not going to be purchasing groceries with it. I'm going to be purchasing some things that can only be purchased with this kind of spiritual money, if you will. They can only be bought that way. And that's what He is interested in. Now, I know in this day people don't want to hear that. And you know what? And used to, and I'm not ever trying to put people off, but I have to tell you, I have to quit worrying about what I think we want to hear and don't want to hear and start telling you how it really is. And this is how it is. Now, again, you'll make your own decision about that, but I just need you to see that this thing is way more than we thought. Okay, now, I have a couple of little, if you look on your notes, now my pages are different from yours, so somewhere on one of your pages, you have a little illustration with a little guy with a knapsack. I need you to turn to that page in your notes. What is that? 8? Thank you. 9? She was holding up fingers. I'm sorry, I can't see from here. 8 and 9. Okay, I need the first one, the small one. Okay, page 8. All right. Here's what I want you to see. And I told you this before. There is, when you're given doctrine, before you're given doctrine, you're given an exhortation. And then you're given doctrine. And then you're given exhortation. And then you're given doctrine. There's a pattern to this, okay? And in this pattern, you've got this little guy, and in the sack over his shoulder, he has got 3 things in that sack. Can you read them? What are those? Those are 3 of the 4 decision-making skills that you're going to be given as a simple son when you start the education proper. So what I'm picturing for you in this first illustration is the guy has already gotten through that part of the curriculum. That means in the Bible, where is he? Well, now, if you're going to give me a reference in the Bible, where is he? Okay, well, he's got 3 things in his sack. How many's left? 1, and it's equity, sitting out there on the other side of the exhortation. So where in Romans would you expect him to be? Toward the end of Romans, right? All right. Now, I want you to look up on the PowerPoint with me, and I want to read it, because this comes out of the table of contents. To know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding. That's phase 1 of level 1. Do you remember? Remember that? Level 1, phase 1, that's to know wisdom and perceive the words of... Remember what we talked about what that was. First of all, to know it exists, and then to know what? It has value. It has importance to it. There's something to know about that. Can you see as you're going through this, more and more value is being placed on this? You get more understanding about it? Foresee the word. And then the second part of phase 1, this is phase 2. You're going to receive the instruction. Now you're receiving something. More than just knowing about it. That's what you got here and here. Orient and establishment. Here, you actually begin to get these 4 parts now instructed in. I'm not going to write them all up, but let me just put the first one up here. In wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity. And if what I've told you is right, before you get to each one of those, you're going to have an exhortation that you're going to be given that sets you up to really get the doctrine. And that's what it's geared to do. It's like the primer coat, and the doctrine is the paint. It's making it so the doctrine sticks, and it does what it's supposed to do. Well, when you go through these 4, you're actually going to be given some exhortation in between each one. I'm about to take you to the exhortation after you have received the exhortation, and then wisdom, and the exhortation, and then justice, and the exhortation, and then judgment. I'm now going to take you to the exhortation that precedes that godly skill of equity. And here we are. I'm sorry, that's just the rest of the table of contents. You know what that is. We've seen the part we're after. Proverbs 4. So if you're making notes, you just know that in Proverbs 4, here in verse 20, you're actually going to be looking at the exhortation that precedes instruction in equity. Now, there is a place in the book of Romans where that's going to happen. And I'm going to show you that. But first, let's look at this in Proverbs chapter 4. We'll start reading in verse 20. My son, attend to my words. Incline thine ear unto my sayings. Let them not depart from thine eyes. Keep them in the midst of thine heart. For they are life. And I highlighted that because we're going to talk about that in a moment. They are life unto those that find them, and health to all their flesh. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Now, if you recall, let me just see how far, let me just see what the next passage that I'm going to take you to. See, I thought I was going to give that to you in Romans. I don't have it on the PowerPoint, so look in your notes, that next page that has the next illustration. Look below that last exhortation, you'll see chapter 4, verses 20 to 23. There's the exhortation in Proverbs. Okay? I want to take you to a different one. Look at, if you back up to the first exhortation, before the guy ever gets wisdom, that's contained in chapter 3, verses 13 to 20. Is everybody following that? Let's just read that. Now we'll kind of sew all this up together, so let me just give it to you. Happy is the man that findeth wisdom. This is one of the first things you're going to get. And when he says happy, look, let me ask you, are lost people ever happy? Sure. Do they ever have anything happen that makes them happy? Can a lost woman be happy at the birth of her kid, or happy when they graduate and move out, or lots of things bring happiness. I remember when we used to have a building cleaning business in Dallas, there was a little sign in one of the cubicles that said, everybody brings joy to this office. Some when they come in and others when they leave. Well, this happy is a godly happiness. It's not talking about just generally being happy. There is a godly happiness that comes to a person who finds this kind of wisdom. And one of the things that you're going to be able to purchase with the wisdom, this is part of the merchandise that you're actually going to be able to purchase out of that. And the reason, well, let me just do it like this. We've read the rest of this passage, so I want to skip that, and let's take this back to Proverbs 2:4. If thou... All right. I'm sorry. When you seek this like you seek for silver, it means that you seek for this as something that you cannot do without. Because silver, as it relates to money, is how we get the things necessary for life. So you see it as necessary. And that's what the seek has to do. He said, I want you to seek this like you do the money in your life, like silver. I want you to see it as absolutely necessary. That it's something you cannot do without. Now, just because it's something you cannot do without doesn't make it the top priority. It just makes it it makes it important, makes it a top priority maybe. Doesn't make it the top priority. Now when we look at the second half of this thing, searchest for her as for hid treasure. Let's suppose, I'm just looking around the room, but trying to think. Let's suppose Eric is getting up, getting ready to go to work, and he's about to leave, and some people pull in to his driveway, and these very official-looking people, and there's a lot of cameras there and a lot of things. They come up and they knock on the door. Huh? Well, okay, Publishers Clearinghouse. And they say, you know, when they answer the door, they say, look, we're from the Texas Historical Society, and we have found irrefutable evidence that a shipment of gold that the Confederate forces had in the Civil War was buried quickly so it would not be discovered by Union troops. And we have discovered it's buried in your yard. And we know that the minimum worth of this is going to be about $500 million. And we want to, you know, we're here to document this find and dig that up. Do you think Eric would say, well, that's nice, but, you know, I'm fixing to go to work and I haven't really finished my coffee yet, so I tell you what, here's what, y'all go ahead and dig, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to work. Now, after that, you know, Crystal's got some ball practice, and I'm going to take her over for ball practice, and then when all that's done, when I get back, I'll look at it if I'm not too tired. Or do you think Eric might get on the phone and say, you know what, I might be a little late today? Because if you knew that that was there, you know, that would be something that you would say, this, at this moment, is now going to take precedence over everything else. Now, I want to give you a different illustration because you say, yeah, but how many times is the Texas Historical Society going to show up at your door saying, you know, so what's the deal there? You ever got ready to leave the house to go to, say, a doctor's appointment or anywhere else you wanted to go and you couldn't find your car keys? Am I the only one? And you don't have this deal where you can whistle and they beep or something, you know? Do you know what becomes the top priority in your life? And it doesn't matter if you were in the middle of breakfast If you discover the keys can't be located, you know what happens? You stop eating. And you stop everything else. And if somebody calls and says, hey, what you doing? You say, you know what? I got to call you back because I'm looking for my keys. Everybody's supposed to understand what that means. And you know what? Some things are short in duration and some things are longer. But something that is so not just necessary, but it has to be done, is what that searches as for hid treasures. Just as you would put everything on hold to get that up, that's the part, this second part that takes it beyond just being necessary. You can seek it like you do something that's very necessary, but then God says, I need you to search for this like it is the critical thing that has to be done. When my kids were little, we were up at my grandparents' house, and my son Philip was in a swing, was kind of hanging out of one of those big trees, and those big oak trees had roots, and they kind of came out of the ground, and they went back down, and they would stick up and all, and he was leaning back in the swing, and he just happened to come across the ground when he leaned back, hit his head on the back of one of those roots, knocked him out of the swing, and I thought, he's going to bust out crying, and I'll go over there and scoop him up and tell him to be a man, you know. And when I go over, you know, and he's just kind of like that, and when I scoop him up, blood is running down my arm. You know what suddenly became the critical thing for me to do? Get him to the hospital. Stop that bleeding and get him to the hospital. And if someone says, well, look, it's our vacation, you know what? You wouldn't even entertain anything else, would you? Because at that moment, that becomes the critical thing in your life. And I'm saying that your Father, by this passage, by this if clause, is saying, here's how important this needs to be. This needs to be as important as your necessary requirements for life. That you make a living so you can have. By the way, didn't we actually read in the exhortation that the merchandise of this is better than the merchandise of silver and gold? So actually, he's saying, first, I need you to see it every bit as necessary, but then I need you to understand that it goes beyond that. This is the critical thing that you have to see as the over... Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I am not saying we should all quit our jobs and move off to the caves and hermit away with our Bibles and study sonship. This is not to the exclusion of the other things in your life. God's not asking you to do that. Don't swing the pendulum too far the other way. What he is trying to get you to see is, by the way, when I take Phil to the hospital and we're there at the hospital, you still have to have something to drink. You go get it out of the machine. I mean, you're still going to take care of some stuff, right? You may have to get on the phone and take care of something else. So there are other important things going on, but even though you're attending to other things, it never leaves your mind what the most critical thing is. And your Father is saying, in your life, look, you have families, and you do have jobs, and you do have things that you're obligated to. And those things should have a level of importance in your life, but even when you're engaged in those things, you need to have in the back of your mind that the most critical thing that's going to be happening in your life is this sonship education. And if you walk away from, you know why he's doing this for you? Because if you don't think of it that way, you're going to be presented with an opportunity to walk away from it so you can just say, well, it's important, but you know what? I really don't have to have it. And that's all the policy of evil needs, that with the day you put on that armor of light, you're going to be presented with the opportunity to walk away from it, with the idea working in your mind, well, it would be nice, but it's just optional. Your Father's trying to get across to you, this isn't optional. Everything about your eternity is hinging on this. No, it's not that you're going to hell if you're not educated as a son, but if you're going to ever be able to labor. The whole reason he saved you was so that he could train you to labor with him. And he's saying, don't throw that away. See this as the overriding priority in your life. the top priority in your life. When a son is being educated by his father, he knows that's the top priority. And he knows that he's going to do other things, but he knows that's the most important thing. So one day, when it comes up, I have a chance to be educated by my father in the business, or go pal around with my friends. You know what the son is going to choose? If that kind of measure is in place, it's not a question. This is it. Now the problem is, this is not an emergency where one of your kids needs to show up at the hospital. This is not $500 million buried in your backyard. And it's not the loss of your car keys. It's beyond those. And believe me, I'd move heaven and earth to get my kid to the hospital. My father is saying, however critical any of those things are, you need to see this that way. You need to see this not just necessary, but without an option. Now that's a pretty big measure, isn't it? And I don't want to scare you with that, and that's why, again, I went to the trouble to tell you, if you look at these and say, look, you know what, I am honestly attending, and I do understand the interactive learning, and I'm committed to that, and I understand this is very, very important to me, but I can't really say right now it's the top priority. I'm not worried about that at all, because you haven't been through any of the doctrine that's supposed to produce any of that yet. In fact, if you were to say to me, I got 2 out of 3 of them, I'd be going, woohoo, you're ahead of the curve. Because without the doctrine, you already think you're there. So, I'm thinking that's great. Now, if you're looking at all of these and you're going like, I'm not in any of them, that's fine too. But when we get to the end of Romans chapter 8, and when we get to the end of Romans chapter 8, if all 3 of those aren't in place, now I'm worried. Because I know how critical those are. If the measure of your commitment is not to that, you know what? At the end of Romans 8, you need to be all in. Because if you're not, where you're not all in, the policy of evil will identify and target, and you will be out. Do not allow yourself to one day be on the outside of this going, yeah, I used to go over there. Brother Mike made a big deal out of that. I hope you'll see, this is not Brother Mike making a big deal out of this. This is your father making a big deal out of this. And that there's a lot more hinging on this than anything else that this world. He's already told you, more than anything you can think of. Now, those are his words. Now, I can't improve on that any. And so I'm not even going to try. Okay, not much time left here. So, now I'm really going to encourage you to go and to read your notes this week, because there's some things that we kind of moved over, and actually we haven't really gotten very far in this. Let me get this back here. We come back to Proverbs 3:13. I talked about that godly happiness a little bit. We don't really have time. We're not going to be able to go any further on the things that we're going to be talking about here. So when we come back in the next session, what we are going to be doing is listing, hopefully much more quickly, now that we've established what it means for this to be the top priority. Look, whether it's there for you or not, let me just ask you, do you understand what I'm talking about when I'm saying that this is going to become a top priority? That it's necessary, but it's more than that. It's critical. And until you begin to see it that way, it really is not ever going to become what it's supposed to become. And so when we come back, we'll do this. We're going to talk about the things that consist of the merchandise of it. And we're going to run through a list of those things, because I think it would be great for you to be able to get an idea of what you'll be able to learn. Fact. I'll give you the next one on the list. You ready? Here we go. So you know that you're going to get a name, right? There's going to be a conversation happening in heaven about you. Let's hope it's a good one. You don't want angels going like, oh no, not that guy. Oh, I knew we were going to get stuck with Sandy. I knew it. No, I'm picking on Sandy now, but, which shows you no one is immune, right? I mean, tomorrow's his birthday. He's still getting it. So you get a name. By the way, you put on that armor of light, that is good things being said about you. And then the second thing is you get a godly happiness. And that's not the kind that's generated by the flesh that just gets happy about stuff. We'll talk more about that later on. Right now we're just kind of naming stuff. But here's the third thing that you're going to get. And this is the one that we'll start with next time. Godly skills. You're going to purchase those through the education. The wisdom that you get is going to allow you to purchase these skills. Now, it's at this point right here that I'm really dying to talk to you about not just how that works, but how these skills get added to. Now, look, the other night, it's been a little while now, but Bob and Norma came over to the house and we played Monopoly. Big mistake. Bob is not a Christian. I'm just going to tell it to you like that. He is ruthless. Put his own wife out of business. Then he put me, his best friend, out of business. And then my wife, who fed him a meal, he clobbered her. He owned everything. But in his sinister, diabolical, ungodly way of playing the game of... You know how he added all that up? Little by little. Little by little. It was in stages. He did it step by step. I hate to compare you with what Bob's doing now, but you're going to take these areas of godly skills, and you know what you're going to do? You're just going to, let's use the Monopoly term, you're going to buy the property, and then you're going to be able to later, you're going to be able to purchase something about that allows you to put houses on it. And then you're going to be able to purchase something that'll let you put a hotel on it. You get the analogy? Those skills, you're going to, in a process, I just didn't want you to think in this, God just kind of waves a wand or somebody puts spoofle dust on you and suddenly, boy, I've just got all there is about godly wisdom. You're going to get it, but you're going to purchase it, and you're going to say, okay, here, you know what? I've got this skill, but you got a very rudimentary understanding of that, but there's some things, and you are actually going to purchase to yourself these skills. These are the skills that you'll take with you in the heavenly places that you can't buy with silver and gold. They're the things that are eternal, so that by the time your time comes, I'm really hoping is by the time my time comes, God will be looking at me and in His way of thinking, looking at me and saying, that guy is rich. He has the riches of Jesus Christ. And that's not going to be defined by anything this world understands. And you know what, folks? I'm taking every bit of that with me. It's going to last me forever. It's going to be great. Now, we'll come back next time and talk about these godly skills. Just before it went off. We're going to come back and talk about those godly skills a little bit. I'm not going to teach you on them yet. We're going to do that when we get to Romans. But I'm going to point them out. I'm going to show them to you. And then I'm going to give you, I don't know, maybe another half dozen things that you're going to be able to purchase with this wisdom. You know what? I'm hoping this is going to be about a little bit. I'll just tell you this and we'll stop. I can remember when I hate to buy cards, gift cards. I just don't like that. It doesn't mean I don't like to get them. I just don't like to give them. Because I'm cheap. No, because it means I didn't think about what to get you. I just got you a gift card. Of course, some people are real picky. They deserve a gift card because anything you get them, they don't like. They got to get their own thing. I get it. But the first time I got caught behind in time and didn't plan ahead, and I had to give one of my grandkids a gift card, she opened up the envelope, she read the birthday note, and then she pulled out that little plastic deal, And she got this big smile on her face, and she went, Pawpaw, what's this? I almost took out that old expired Visa and traded with her. Like, here, gold. Oh well. Sorry. How my mind works, I don't know. I said, honey, that's a gift card. She goes, what's that? And I go, you spend it like money. She said, it's money? You ever seen that commercial about the guy goes, you want more money? And the little kid goes, no. I love that commercial. I love that. When you don't know, but when she understood but you know what? She took her gift card to Walmart and had a field day. So now you know what? She knows what gift card is. Now it's like, I'll take gift card. That's great. I'm hoping that this little exercise is going to be like that to you, because when you walked in the door today, you may not have had much of an idea about what kind of merchandise you're going to be able to purchase. And I'm hoping that by the time we kind of run through that list, you guys are going to be like my granddaughter going, hey, heavenly gift card. This is great. And if you know what it is you're going to be able to purchase, you know what? When she knew what she would get, that made that little piece of plastic more, I want to say important. What's the word I'm looking for? More valuable to her. She saw it as more valuable. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to parade across in front of you a number of things that you're supposed to really see. And when you do, you'll look at even though whatever you think, this group, I don't have any doubt about how you feel about the education. Who else would show up and let me drone for 2 hours, okay? You evidently see something. But I'm going to tell you that whatever you see now, when you see this list, it's going to become more valuable to you than before, because you're going to look at this list and you're going to say, wow. Because what I want to show you is not just this list, I want to show you something about what this list is going to do for you out there. I mean, it's almost like using a gift card to buy roller skates, and they go, oh, great, what are those for? God bless you, you don't get a gift card. But people on DVD are wondering right now, Robert says, what if we die tomorrow? Robert says that. I'm going to tell you, my idea about the rapture has changed. I used to think, man, just let the rapture happen. I'd love for it to happen today. Come on. Just personally, I'd like to get a little further on in my education before he takes me. It's not that I don't love his appearing. If he does it, there it is. But you ain't asking my opinion on it. So all I'm saying is, I need to get further down the road in this education. And I know, and if you're looking at the stuff on the board, you haven't even started the education proper yet. So, yeah, okay. Hey, Randall asked me at the break, he said, how long do you think before we'll get through the book of Romans? And I said, how old are you? Yeah, till December? Oh, the Mayan calendar? Yeah, okay, well, there you go. Mayan calendar, it'll all be over. I can't wait till that thing goes bankrupt. I'm just going to make me laugh. No, it's this year, but don't worry, they'll change it again, No worries. Okay, so here, that's where we're headed. That's where we're going. Listen, I love you guys. I love showing up here and talking about this stuff, because it really is the most incredible stuff in the world. And this assembly is going to become wealthy in Christ, not in the eyes of the world, but in the eyes of your Heavenly Father. And that's a wealth, folks, you're going to take with you in eternity. You're going to take every bit of that. I do not want him to look at this assembly and say, you guys sold property and you think you're rich, but you're poor, destitute, and naked. I want us to have the riches of Jesus Christ. And that's where we're headed.